Hi, my name is Jennifer Dotson, and I'm your host for Poetry Today, as well as the founder and creative engineer for Highland Park Poetry. I am so thrilled to have Sheila Elliott as our guest today. Sheila is a poet and prose writer. Her work has appeared in many online and print publications, including those published by Highland Park Poetry, Chicago Poetry Press, East on Central, as well as anthologies by groups such as Belt Publications, Lake Claremont Press, and the Off-Campus Writers Workshop. She also self-published a chapbook in 2021 called Sand and Salt. Sheila lives in Oak Park. But the biggest thing, this has been an exciting year for Sheila. Yeah. This year, Sheila won the 2025 Prairie State Poetry Prize for a first or second book, which is a contest by Highland Park Poetry Press. And last year's judge was Jan Chronister, a poet, widely published poet in Wisconsin. And she took a shine to your manuscript. Certainly the nice thing about our contest is that you're guaranteed that every manuscript is read by the judge. So, and considered multiple times. Yes. So the chance that your odds are better than other contests where hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts are received. Yeah. So, and there's often first-hand readers that you have to get through a gauntlet of preliminary readers before you're even considered by the judge.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
Your book was definitely read by Jan several times.
It's great to hear that the work is taken seriously and read from beginning to end. I think that's probably a goal that most poets have for their work.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're responsible. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Obviously, I'm delighted. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we have been running a race a little bit. I mean, we started working first. You were in the contest. The prize was announced in January.
Yeah.
And then we've been collaborating over the course of the year, getting all the pieces together to actually transform your raw manuscript into a published book, this is the cover, all designed by graphic artist Monica Cardestam of Lake Forest. She's fabulous.
Beautiful work. Yes.
So excited that we stumbled upon her. Anyway. Very happy.
Yes.
Thank you, Monica. And anyway, the book is now published and is available on Amazon for purchase. So please do. And since we're talking that way, I might as well just go ahead and mention that Sheila will be having a sort of a publication launch party and reading on Saturday, September 13th at 4 p.m. here in Highland Park at the Wayfarer Theater office at 1850 2nd Street. So if you're in the area, please join us.
Yes, please. Please do.
So I guess I do have some questions for you. Just first of all, I wanted to know, you mentioned when you reached out in your cover letter that you experienced a trauma with your manuscript. I'm hoping that you can tell that story.
Oh, yeah. It's really a story that the lesson of which is keep multiple copies of your work. Not last holiday season, the prior holiday season, I was shopping in downtown Chicago. I was on Randolph and State Street, very busy area. It was December 23rd, and I was probably more preoccupied than I should have been. Didn't have, wasn't watching and being as careful as I should have. And my wallet was stolen. Now, a wallet stolen, that's traumatic enough, I think, for most people. But I had used my wallet for everything that was important in my life. I didn't realize it at the time, but when it came time to replace all that, I did realize how foolish that was. One of the things that was in the wallet, along with, contact information for old friends, a priceless family heirloom, one of the things that was in there was my flash drive. And the flash drive contained poems, story starts, essays, random ideas, just the kind of information that most writers have and keep on their hard drive or maybe in two or three locations. Well, and I was not as careful as I should have been. When that flash drive went, all my work went. And that was, and of course, it was the genesis on that flash drive of what I hoped was going to be my first complete book of poetry, complete book. I could replace my driver's license, my debit card, my charge cards. I could replace a lot, and I could freeze and unfreeze, my credit rating. I could take care of all that, but what I lost in that flash drive was gone, gone, gone. It was not going to be replaced. And so it was very traumatic. It was definitely losing a part of yourself,
Sure.
and not knowing how you could possibly regain it. And so there was really a grieving process involved in letting all of that go. I mean, several months trying to decide of where do I go next. And so I'm a writer, so I was still writing. That was very helpful. And I began to notice in my more recent writing that there were certain images and phrases. I thought, well, didn't I use that before, going in the Wayback Machine? I've been writing for quite a while. And I began looking at old print copies, small journals that are unfortunately out of business now, that had picked up my work, some of it 25 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. But what was interesting is I could find a connecting thread between many of those poems and what I was doing post-traumatic wallet theft.
Okay.
So that was a very learning experience for me, And so much of what I have offered here in Memory Coin is work that was done, published, some years ago, sitting side by side and, in effect, talking to more recent poems that I was able to do, in the last couple of years. So, long story short is, if you're a writer, please have your work stored in multiple locations. Take it from someone who knows, it is.
Gosh,
Yeah.
that just
But the whole process of finding that link between the you that was there, 27 years ago, and the you that's here now, that was pretty interesting, and that was a worthwhile experience.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you've been a writer for a long time. So
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey as a writer?
Oh, well, I'm still on it, so I hope,
No, it's an ongoing journey, continuing
Yes,
journey.
right,
But
yeah.
what's happened? Yeah. Where did you get started? How did you get
started? I got started college years, very early in college years. I had done some reading before that, but I was not particularly gripped by poetry until I'd say I was around 18, possibly 19, and I got introduced to Irish writers primarily. And I was really taken by the Irish writers, Yeats and some of his contemporaries, and Patrick Kavanagh, who was another popular Irish writer at that time, Brendan O'Reilly. I really picked up on the image, the energy, the fact that they were using the poem to speak to such a wide variety of causes and interests, I thought the mysticism that I found in Yeats was very interesting. Although I don't really regard myself as any type of mystical poet or anything of that sort. So that's where it started. And I began writing, just very much on the download, very much a secret kind of thing, writing little couplets, two-line poems, and working with rhyme primarily. Most of the poets who I read were lyric poets. And there was about a year and a half when I did that, and then finally I looked at them and I thought, maybe 2 or 3 of these I can work with, and I got my confidence up, and I sent them to a neighborhood newspaper that had a poetry column, and they picked up a couple of them.
Wow,
so that
nice.
was, these were very innocent poems. They were very simple poems. They were rhymed poetry, which I know is not all that.
I love rhyme poetry, so
Yeah,
okay.
but I know it's a little out of fashion now. But that's where I started,
Cool.
So, and then, since then, I've continued to write more or less continuously. Sometimes more than less. But I have, really, really explored what I hope are more expansive themes, and worked with a lot of different poetic forms. But that's how I got started.
Oh,
Just
okay. Well, I
little
think that given that we're here to celebrate Memory Coin, this would be a good opportunity for you to read a poem from the book.
Okay, great. Well, I'll start with a poem that has also been already been published by Highland Park Poetry. It's one of my more favorite poems because the poem deals with, and it's written, certainly it was written by myself as a mature adult, reflecting on where I was and what my state of mind was when I was much younger. It's definitely a poem about a mid-20th century young woman. The poem is called Tea Leaves and Cards in the Reliance Building. Taller than most buildings, 12 decades back, you had 14 stories almost from the start. You must have 14 million stories now. I have one too. About someone who ate in the dime store near the recessed entry that used to be your lobby. Its elegance aging even then, frail as a shadow. It was lit like late afternoon. She worked nearby, or briefly not at all, and usually went to school for a few months and, in uncertain hours, found her way to the building you were then, when you seemed so much older and worn than you are today, when you still had a birdcage, elevator, and one office where they claimed to understand tea leaves and cards, with a reader at a table, smiling, who liked the windows raised when it was warm. His soft voice competed with the rapid transit, the jittery commerce on State Street, the elevator's metallic chatter as it rose and slipped, back again and again. Imagine if his words were overheard by your long-gone walls, floor tiles, that window waiting to open. Once, twice, a third time, he must have said to me, "You'll change, and then you too will have to learn to start again." Thank you.
Well, I liked it the first time I read it, and I like it now.
Thank you.
And so much of your work is centered in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that I take it that's where you got your
yeah.
start.
I grew up in Chicago. Yeah, I've lived in the Chicago suburbs now for the last many years. Aside from college and graduate school, I'm pretty much Chicago-based. And I find Chicago a very stimulating place. It's a wonderfully vital city, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
So talk to me a little bit about your writing routine and if you have any support from other writers.
Okay. I don't know if I have what would be called a routine. I'm not the kind of writer who says, okay, it's 10 a.m., you better get to your desk for 3.5 hours, at least in the beginning. I always have a journal with me. I always write almost every single day. Primarily, it's what I think will be poem it starts with fragments that I hope will develop into poems.
Okay.
There might be snatches of dialogue in there. There are images that come to my mind. It's really what I observe and can absorb from wherever I am at that day. So that is definitely part of my routine. Then I go through those notes, so to speak, on a regular basis and see what leaps out at me. And I think most writers, especially poets, they say, for whatever reason, one phrase will leap out and, it sort of becomes generative in and of itself. And I work with whatever I have then, and I play with the words. I'll write a phrase, I'll rewrite it using synonyms, I'll rewrite it using synonyms and antonyms, I'll look for a rhyme scheme, either an inner line rhyme scheme, possibly even 2 or 3 lines. I play with it. I often do, what used to be known as clustering, where I take a phrase and do a lot of free associations within myself. And what I like to do is to do like 2 or 3 free associations that began with that one phrase. And then once I've finished all that, because that can be, I don't know, a timely process, depending on how busy I am that day, then I look for what looks like it might be a poem. Then I get out a clean sheet of paper, start writing, and that will be the first draft. But I do many drafts of almost, I don't think I've ever written a poem that ever had just one draft, you know.
Just popped out of your head, right?
Doesn't happen.
Perfect. No,
Doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a writing group or people that you hang out with and talk about your writing?
Yeah. I find writing groups are really important, and I'm very, very helpful. And if I was going to ever offer someone advice, and I don't think anyone's asking for it, but what the heck, get a group. You know, it is helpful because the people in a group, and hopefully these are people who you trust, and you know are serious about writing. They are your first readers.
Right.
You know, they are the people who you hope, you know, in a month or a year or whatever, would pick your book up off of a shelf of a bookstore, you know. They're the ones who would be thumbing through, you know, a journal and stop and read your poem. You know, that's, for me, the connection with other poets really begins with the group. So, yeah, I belong to quite a few groups. We don't meet every week,
right?
You know.
Okay.
We might only meet 3 or 4 times a year, but
Okay.
that's enough because you bring to them the work that you think is going to end up finished. You know,
Yeah, right.
Not everything you start ends up finished.
Right.
You know, so. But their feedback is valuable, and yeah, it's been very important to me. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear some more.
Okay, great. Okay. This is a poem that I wrote. You know, like most writers, I read a lot. And 2 of my favorite poets are Emily Dickinson, of course, and Frank O'Hara. And they couldn't be more different in terms of public image, you know, or centuries. Emily Dickinson, of course, was from the 19th century. Frank O'Hara was mid-20th century. But I often carry their paperback collections in my backpack when I'm out walking or whatever. So this is a poem called Frank and Emily. It's with respects to both of them. I've drawn upon their image and their work, imagining that they have some sort of relationship, friendship. It's definitely a friendship. Okay. Frank and Emily. With respect to the great poets Emily Dickinson and Frank O'Hara. They're charmers, those 2 poets I carry in my pack. Their slim books, Dickinson at home where there is only half light, and O'Hara, his spine and covered, tattered, always rattling with impatience for the moment when he can be free. I dream they commiserate as I walk, that they bicker like lovers, covers repositioned thoughtlessly, the way bedsheets can be tossed aside. While I walk along East Avenue, I think of their voices. Lunch, he suggests, to which Emily, of course, demurely declines. He understands. He understands. He can read her blind and has known his own bandaged moments of the soul, and so waits for another day, another way to say it, different with a slant. Little things should be established after the big things of the night. He will write those words someday, but now it is just an afternoon, and there are galleries, there are friends, and yes, she might one day judge tenderly of me. Imaginary Frank thinks, returning to work, nurturing a half-hearted dream.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
What are your inspirations? I mean, you mentioned Frank O'Hara and Emily Dickinson. Are those
You mean poetic?
poetically? Yeah. Or actually, where do you get your material?
Well, yeah, I read a lot of poetry, so I tend to follow trends to see what topics other poets are writing about. That's very helpful, you know. I I think most, for me, I look for how to say it, what seems incongruous in
Okay.
life, you know. Someone looking a little, I don't know, lost, or someone looking overconfident, you know. You know, when you know, maybe not, the surrounding community is not that confident. You know, I look for people and what they're doing, and try to get a sense of what their inner life is, and then work from that. And then I do. I'm a great museum goer. I love ekphrastic poetry. I often, you know, will go to the Art Institute or any of the museums in Chicago. Doesn't necessarily have to be art. And just go to a familiar piece of work and try to look deeper at it. My chapbook, Sand and Salt, was to a large degree based on continual visit to Edward Hopper's famous painting,
yeah,
Nighthawks. Yeah, yeah. And you know, you kind of enter into a conversation, you know, an interior kind of conversation with the artwork, and I do that pretty frequently. So, but yeah, again, you know, I look for what seems active, what seems stimulating, and what seems interesting. You know,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Does writing energize or exhaust you?
That's a difficult question. You know, I always bring a lot of energy to it. I like to write. I still like to write even after I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah, sometimes if I'm really deeply involved in it, you know, when I wrap it up writing, you know, if I've been at my desk or table for a couple of hours, yeah, then I'm going to be a little, you know, tired, you know, particularly if I'm doing computer work. You
Okay,
know, yeah,
right.
you know, I do find that. I do almost all my work
By
pen
hand,
and pencil, yeah, you know,
Okay.
that's it, you know. And by the time it reaches the computer, I'm more or less satisfied with it, at least
Okay.
to some degree, you know. So, yeah, I can't say it exhausts me, you
Okay.
know. But do I get tired? Yeah.
All right. Have you done any literary pilgrimages or?
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose, like most writers, you know, you go to the shrines, so to speak. I enjoy that.
Okay.
You know, yeah. I guess that, you know, favorite literary pilgrim. First of all, I don't know what I expect to get out of it. You're not going to be able to write a poem better by gazing at, say, Hemingway's mother's piano. You know, you know, but you do make a connection
Okay.
with the complexities of their lives, and that helps you write. I find, you
okay.
know. So I live in Oak Park, so I have to, you know,
Yes,
I'm
right.
not beating up on Hemingway at all.
It's just he's local.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
But my favorite literary sites, I guess, would be Walden Pond. You know,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
okay.
great. You know, to go there, it's a beautiful spot. It's a beautiful spot, struggling to remain beautiful. You know, because it's right in the middle of such a densely urban area, as
Right.
Thoreau pointed
Yes.
out. And several years ago, my family and I took a trip to Ireland, and we went to the Lake Isle of Innisfree,
Oh,
which is,
wow,
you know, and it measured up to my expectations, and even everyone else in the
Okay.
family enjoyed it. So
Oh,
those are
good.
two, you know, very popular.
Well, I'd love to hear some more of your work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that's a nice segue to a poem I wrote for my grandmother, who was an immigrant from
Okay.
Ireland. So, Going Over, an epistolary poem for my grandmother. The home place was flat, and you understood it would be an uphill climb. Farranfore, Connaught, Dublin, Southampton, then the States. From the first you heard the sharp-edged lips of doubt. Even before the gangplank barked goodbye, you on your own shilling, carrying your own valise, you made your way with immigrant coins embossed with fear and love. Without so much as a hello, you told them you welcomed work, cook, domestic. You nursed strangers' broods. The side door was yours. You stayed alone, found love, learned life's elusive math. One husband, 4 children, 6 rooms, 2 flat. You, a landlady now, you cooked, you cleaned, you raised the young. You went to novenas, to movies, to mass. You rode streetcars, sat silent. You could have signaled to disembark, but stayed. Humbled now, I'm brazen enough to write of you, not forgetting how you climbed 100 stairways to the L trains, presiding then over a city swollen with promises. Unsteady trains run there still. From their windows, I can see into strangers' kitchens like the one where your ghost ruled, where I learned laughter is often threaded with silence. What's flat can be uneven, and how going over anywhere always means the commencement of unending uphill climbs.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I guess one last question possibly. What hard lessons have you learned from being a writer?
I guess, once you sign on to be a writer, you have to accept the fact that you're working in isolation quite a bit. That's a very hard lesson. I think that you have to be very persistent and determined and acquire a kind of thick skin, because not everything you do will be wonderful. And there are people who can tell you that quite directly. So you got to deal with that. I think those are the 2 hardest lessons, and I think a gradual lesson, it's not really hard, but one that's valuable, is to recognize that you are part of a writerly community, and part of that obligation is not just for the world to applaud you, but you have to go to readings and be enthusiastic about other writers' works. You have to go to, book signing events and take a serious look at their work. You have to do what you can to encourage that writerly community continues, because without that, we're all adrift. So,
well, that I think is a perfect wrap up for our meeting today, and that is, we hope that everyone will come support you on Saturday, September 13th at 4 p.m. at the Wayfarer Theater for your first reading of Memory Coin. This has been a great sneak preview for people who are interested in getting to know you and know about your work. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Well,
we look forward to seeing more poets and seeing you in September.
Yes. Please come.